The head of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, has said all options are on the table to resolve violent protests which are intensifying in the city of Portland in Oregon. A man was shot dead in the city on Saturday night amid clashes between supporters of President Trump and Black Lives Matter protesters. Police have not yet released details about the victim. I've been speaking to Mike Baker, a reporter for the New York Times, and he's been covering the protests in Portland and describes how events unfolded.
Yeah, so the event really started yesterday out in the suburbs. There was a rally of Trump supporters who gathered with mostly in trucks and flags, and hundreds of them came out, and their goal was to go down to Portland and really sort of wave the Trump flag there in a city where there have been protests against police brutality and against the administration on some weeks. And so by the time some of them came downtown, there were a number of protesters there, sort of ready to be there for their arrival. And as they the Trump supporters drove through the city streets, there were escalating clashes. I mean, there were fist fights in the streets. There were some of the Trump supporters, they were shooting paintballs from the backs of pickup trucks. Some protesters on the streets were throwing things back at them. I mean, it was an ongoing escalation up until the point when this person was shot and killed.
It sounds like incredibly intense scenes, and we were hearing that there were up to 600 vehicles making their way into the city. And of course, you describe pepper spray and a high degree of violence, and you too were caught up in that. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just sort of following this caravan going through town to see what was going to transpire. And at one of the intersections, I was videotaping there as these trucks were driving through the intersection, and these protesters were yelling at them. And at one point, this guy pulls out his paintball gun and just firing indiscriminately into the crowd. I mean, I was standing there with my press vest on, and he shot me in the shoulder, and it sort of had everyone running. And then the truck that came after was spraying a whole bunch of pepper spray into the crowd. So it was just an example of sort of the indiscriminate nature of what was going on sometimes there.
And I think that we are sharing the video footage that you've also shared on your Twitter feed about what went on. And when you actually described on Twitter that you had yourself been shot at, you in turn received a response from President Trump. What did he have to say?
Well, I say, yeah, he said today that this kind of backlash to the protests is not something that surprises him. I mean, there was a bit of a tone of endorsing a bit of a vigilante violence here, that these protests have been going on for 3 months in Portland. The president has made Portland a bit of an argument in his re-election campaign that he's the candidate of law and order, and these cities like Portland are going to be sort of the future of the country under a different administration. That's sort of how he tries to portray it. And then here he is saying, this kind of thing isn't a surprise when you have this kind of protest going on. So it certainly adds to a volatile situation. We have 3 consecutive weekends now. We've had political violent conflict in Portland with involving guns between right-wing and left-wing folks. And so looking for a little bit of a way out of this, and I'm not seeing it right now.